up today. Just for some context as this goes on, California has a student enrollment of 6.3 million kids. That's the highest in the nation. The only state that comes close is Texas, and Texas is number 2, 1.5 million fewer students. Okay, so California's student enrollment is just huge, comparatively speaking to the other states. 3.4 million of those kids qualify for free and reduced lunch. Over half are high poverty. No other state comes close. Please keep that in mind. No other state comes near that. 2010 to 2011, California ranked 43 out of 50 states in per pupil spending. With this population, we're 43 out of 50 in per pupil spending. In 2010-2011, California ranked 49 out of 50 in students per teacher ratio. 49 out of 50. Only Utah is worse. There you go. Sac City right now is still doing contingency planning on 40 to 1 high school class size next year. $18 billion has been slashed from California's K-12 education funding over the past 3 years. $18 billion. California is now allowing school districts to cope with the budget crisis by raising lower grade class sizes, obviously high school class sizes too, but California made a commitment to lower class sizes at the elementary levels, a deep commitment to that. That's essentially gone, and by shortening the schooling year. But the push to continue to constantly raise test scores is still there. That has not lessened at all. So these are important things to keep in mind. When you hear people talk about failures, where is the failure? Where is the failure?
With our government.
Exactly. So Kate Lenox is going to talk now about No Child Left Behind and some of the federal issues.
Nifty graphics, but that's what I always say as the public education failed our children, or as the government failed public education. Hit it.
Hit it.
Well, this was the boring, ordinary thing, so that was supposed to be up there. Go ahead, hit the next one.
It's what the teacher's brain looks like.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. But, okay, so No Child Left Behind. Everybody hears it, but not everybody really understands the mechanism, because it's really what's driving this constant conversation about failing schools. So when the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which is the real name of No Child Left Behind, was renewed in 2001, because this is the act that gives the funding from the federal government to our schools at the local level. They nicknamed this version of it No Child Left Behind because for the first time it required that all the scores of different students, different groups of students would be accounted for, so that no school could average out all the test scores and say we're doing just fine when there's a group of kids that are always failing. So it brought that measure of accountability to these tests. But it also has the goal that all children be proficient. All children, 100% of children, including special ed kids and English language learners, will all be tested proficient by 2014, 3 years from now. And proficient is defined as above grade level. So any school that accepts, or school district that accepts federal education dollars has to make adequate yearly progress, AYP, toward that goal. And then schools that fail to meet their test scores face intervention and sanctions. So the No Child Left Behind brought on this huge increase in testing and emphasis on testing. So it now requires testing every year in grades 3 through 8 for reading and math, and at least once in high school. And then it requires tests for science at least once during the elementary, middle school, and high school years. And students in California spend a week on the STAR tests, and Sac City students also have benchmark tests 5 times a year. So they spend a lot of time taking tests. No Child Left Behind disaggregates, requires that all the student population scores are disaggregated by groups. The overall population of the school, disadvantaged children, or Title I kids, major racial and ethnic groups, special ed kids, and English language learners, and migrant students. So if your those populations of those kids are below a certain level, for a certain percentage of the total school population, then their test scores don't count. So that's significant. Because if you don't have any English language at your school, learners at your school, then their test scores don't count against you making AYP. If you don't have very many special ed kids at your school, then their test scores won't count against you making AYP.
So, Kate, does that maybe incentivize schools
Yes,
to somehow not serve or push out English language learners or special needs kids?
That is exactly.
So they actually get left behind.
Yes.
Oh, that's why we don't reclassify the way we're supposed to.
Yes. So schools have to show an increase in those test scores in every group every 2 years, in the first 2 years. So that baseline was taken in 2002. They started using this model. And so they had to show increase in student performance, and then they have to increase the scores, continuously increase the scores every 3 years after that to meet that target of 100% proficiency in 2014. So why are there so many failing schools? Because the test scores are a moving target. If they don't go up, if any significant group fails to make its target score 2 years in a row, the school then enters program improvement and it begins to incur sanctions. If a school fails to make its adequate yearly process 6 years in a row, it is labeled failing and it must be restructured, and the restructuring can include closure, state takeover, replacing the principal and the staff, or reopening as a charter. And whole districts like Sac City Unified can be in program improvement and labeled as failing. The U.S. Department of Ed, Arnie Duncan, our Secretary of Education, predicted that 82% of schools will fail to make AYP this year. After 2014, when 100% of students must be proficient, a single child's low test score could cause an entire school to be labeled as failing. That is the logical consequence of this policy. So the unintended consequences of No Child Left Behind, high stakes testing has led to cheating. Districts in Atlanta experienced cheating scandals. LA Unified Board of Education recently closed a charter school that had actually provided the actual test questions to the students for test prep. And now Washington, D.C. schools are reviewing test scores, Erasure-gate, but this happened under Michelle Rhee's watch, high-pressure situations, and they found all these, did a study and found all these way higher number of erasures on tests, way beyond the statistical possibility.
They were wrong to write. They were all wrong to write.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Nickelback, or No Child Left Behind, has also changed the way schools are funded. School district that accept federal Title I money must participate in No Child Left Behind, but it's never been funded to the authorized levels in the legislation. You can't call it an unfunded mandate because you don't have to participate. You cannot accept the federal money, and then you don't have to participate. So it's not considered an unfunded mandate, and yet they don't. Yes,
I call it
but they don't give the schools enough money to pay for all the testing or the school improvement measures that they have to put in place when a school is labeled failing. They haven't been able to. So Title I funding has been flat as well, so they're still spending the same money on Title I since 2002. They haven't raised that any money, even though there's all these.
Title I is funding for what?
For low poverty, low-income kids. What did I say? Low poverty. And okay, so. And because of hold harmless clauses, so you can't take away money from a school district. You have to hold them harmless. They can't redistribute those funds. The state can't. You always got that much money. You don't really need it now, but I can't lower your level of funding because I have to be held harmless. So how much does testing cost? The U.S. Department of Ed is proposing to spend $350 million just to develop new tests and expand testing to subjects not previously covered by art. That's one of the complaints. Well, we don't have time to teach art anymore. We have to teach the test. Art isn't on the test. Well, now there will be a test for art. So, yay, that'll really make everybody an artist.
Test first graders over in one district in Colorado
Like for art?
for art.
Oh, good grief.
So, and California currently spends $74 million a year on STAR testing. That's that 1 week of testing that counts. It spends $72 million on the California exit exam, and another $58 million basically on test prep for Casey for all the kids that fail it the first time. So then they have to be given test prep so they can pass, so they can graduate from high school with a diploma. Otherwise, you don't graduate. And testing is so profitable that Muammar Gaddafi's investment fund owned a 3.2% share of Pearson Education. He does a lot of those tests, worth $453 million, 3.2% share. So by that, my calculation, that is 3 degrees of separation between testing and terrorism.